what their end goal is for things like people not to be recruited to these defence companies, and the defence companies not to do as well, because they don't want the defence companies to be operating in a way that enables them to then sell arms on to Israel.
It's the World in 10 podcast from The Times. Our defence editor, Larisa Brown, reports today on arms companies quitting university careers fairs amid pressure from protesters. Larissa's with us now. Larissa, welcome.
Thank you.
You've been talking with people in the arms industry. What have they been telling you?
Yes, well, it's very interesting because someone came to me with this story, and then I ended up speaking to various defence companies and also ADS about it. And what I was told is that defence companies have become increasingly worried about attending careers fairs at universities because of the nature of the protests that are happening. And in some cases, universities themselves have given advice to defence companies that they don't think they should attend because of health and safety concerns and security concerns. And that advice has basically meant that the defence companies themselves have felt that they don't want to subject their young employees to intimidation and harassment at these careers fairs, so they've had to pull out of them. Or in some cases, the events and careers fair sort of talks have had to go online. So that's been another impact of that. And then what I was told was really worrying people is that then means that recruitment's affected in the sector. And this is a sector that already has thousands of job vacancies. And because of the inability to actually go to these careers fairs and recruit young people, they're suffering even more. And that's obviously concerning people at a time when we've got heightened threats.
So, who is it that benefits from these protests? I mean, it's really unpleasant for these young employees. We can't get staff, but what's the impact beyond that?
Well, it's different causes. In one thing that ADS was saying was that there's been a sort of increase in all of this in the recent years, and somebody else was saying that it was linked to what was going on in Gaza, and the protesters are targeting companies that might be affiliated with the Israeli Defense Ministry. Now, a couple of the companies that I spoke to were BAE Systems and Leonardo Defense Company, and both of them don't sell any weapons directly to Israel, but they both do provide components for the F-35 jets, and those F-35 jets they've sent these components to the US to develop the F-35s, and then the US have sent these on to Israel. Now, Leonardo says that it's not clear whether Israel's actually using the component from Leonardo because it's unclear. They don't basically specify what exactly they're using. They could have sort of tailored their own F-35s using something else. However, the idea is that protesters are sort of targeting these specific companies that may be helping Israel effectively, and then that's why they're then obviously standing outside these universities. And what ADS are saying is that they are being, intimidating and harassing members of staff. And obviously, what their end goal is for things like people not to be recruited to these defence companies, and the defence companies not to do as well, because they don't want the defence companies to be operating in a way that enables them to then sell arms on to Israel.
When we think about arms fairs, military bases, the UK has a long history of protests against arms companies, the defence industry. Is this a ramping up now? Is this getting much worse?
Yes, and this has always happened. And of course, one of the things the defence companies wanted to stress is that, they believe in the right to protest. This is one of the reasons we're developing weapons to protect Britain from countries that might want to stop our ability to do these things and live in a fair and free democratic society. And yes, this has always happened, but they've said that in recent years it's got to a level that they're worried about, and it's become violent in some cases. And in the case of universities, it is what they deem to be intimidation and harassment of employees. And so they think that whilst there should be these an ability to protest, the protests are going too far.
It feels sometimes like the arms industry is very much under fire. We had a senior NATO official this week talking about how banks pension funds and the rating agencies are stupid for not investing in those companies. That's often the blame for that is put on ESG policies, the kind of ethical and social responsibility policies that companies have. Is all of this a risk to these industries keeping on going in the Western world?
It is, and this is an issue that we've also highlighted in the Times actually before Christmas, because ministers were trying to do more to help especially small defence companies from getting the loans and financial support that they need from banks. And that was because there is this general concern that yes, as well as defence companies struggling to get their voice heard at universities, they're also being denied basic loans and other services from banks. They're being debanked, as it were, because they are defence companies. And I think we've heard from various people who are saying that shouldn't be happening, and that there's a great risk potentially to even our national security if the defence companies can't operate effectively. And actually, one of the problems of this is if you say that, oh, you don't want defence companies to export, perhaps, well, then everything that the companies like BAE Systems are developing will be too expensive if they were just providing it for the British military. They need to be able to export some of this equipment in order to drive down the costs. So that's another point that someone told me yesterday.
For ADS and for these defense companies, what do they see as being the solution? What do they want to happen next?
ADS didn't give me any specific solution necessarily, but I've already got quite a lot of reaction from people this morning who have been messaging. And I know the general idea is that universities need to do more to ensure that these companies can go to the jobs fairs, whether that's security or, I don't know, changing the venues, or just making sure that there is a process in place so these companies can actually attend places like jobs fairs. And so banks also have the pressure on them to help defence companies so they can actually flourish.
Would we get to a position where the government legislate to make this happen, or is this still in a kind of voluntary phase?
I've not heard about the idea that they could legislate, but one person did suggest to me that he thinks that there should be basically like some form of body, like a committee that looks at how defence companies can be better supported in this context. And so I think they're planning on writing to various secretaries of state to say that there should be more done across government to help defence companies.